Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're taking a close look at the National Urban League.
Right. Founded way back, 1910.
Yeah, and their mission, it's always been pretty clear, hasn't it? Empowering African Americans, other marginalized groups, aiming for economic self-reliance, equality, justice.
And they've been at it for, well, over a century now, working on the ground, pushing for policy changes, trying to bridge those racial and ethnic gaps.
Gaps that definitely still exist.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, look around in 2025. The core problems the league has always focused on, things like economic inequality, systemic barriers, just unequal access.
Uh-huh.
There's still major issues shaping things today. Really significant.
Exactly. So that's kind of our mission for this deep dive, figuring out if the National Urban League is still that vital force for change it's historically been. We've gone through quite a bit of material to really pull out the key stuff for you.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get into it. Thinking about our cities today, what are the big pressing challenges the league is really digging into right now?
Well, a major one is unemployment. It's stubbornly high in a lot of urban areas, especially for Black and Latino folks.
Higher than the national average.
Oh, yeah. Sources suggest numbers like 8 to 10% sometimes. Compare that to a national average hovering around maybe 5%. And it's not just about jobs. It's tied into other things.
Like what?
Well, like not having equal access to good schools or decent health care. These things are, fundamental if you want economic mobility. Big hurdles.
Right.
And then there's the massive issue of affordable housing. Just huge.
You really can't talk about urban problems without hitting on housing, can you?
No way. I mean, cities like New York, Chicago, LA, rents are through the roof.
Uh-huh.
And finding genuinely affordable, low-income housing, it's incredibly difficult. This pressure, it leads to instability, tons of stress, mental health issues, even homelessness. It's good the league has made this a top priority.
Makes total sense. Hard to focus on anything else if you don't have a stable place to live. What about schools? That's been a focus for them for a long time too, right?
It has. And urban schools often face this, like perfect storm of problems.
Hmm.
Chronic underfunding is a big one. Resources are often outdated, classrooms packed, not enough support for kids with different needs. Some data points to, well, potentially 30% less spending per student in certain urban districts compared to wealthier suburbs.
30% lower. Wow.
Yeah, and that gap hits educational quality hard. It directly impacts the opportunities these kids have down the line.
Okay, so you've got this really challenging urban landscape, lots of interconnected problems, and right in the middle of it, the National Urban League keeps pushing economic empowerment.
Exactly. It's like core to their whole strategy for making real lasting change. One of their main tools is the Workforce Development Program.
Tell me about that.
It's basically job training and placement, but it's specifically designed for urban communities. They focus on getting people into fields where there's actually demand. Think tech, healthcare, green energy jobs.
And it's not just talk, right? We saw some numbers on this.
Definitely not just talk. In 2024, they reported helping over 10,000 people get jobs through this program.
Wow, 10,000.
Yeah, that's a lot of individuals, a lot of families. Getting a foothold towards financial stability, that ripples outwards.
And it's not just about finding a job. They're also nurturing entrepreneurs,
Right.
creating jobs, not just filling them.
Absolutely. That's crucial for long-term health in these areas. Their entrepreneurship center is key here.
What does that offer?
Things people really need. Access to small business loans, which could be tough to get. Mentorship from people who have actually done it. Practical stuff like financial literacy workshops.
Any examples stick out?
Yeah, there were some really good ones. A single mom in Detroit started her own catering business. A young guy in Atlanta developed a tech app focused on his community's needs. It's not just about that one person succeeding. It helps the whole local economy. Creates jobs, sparks new ideas.
Okay, so shifting focus a bit. Beyond the economic side, the League has this long, really significant history in social justice advocacy.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. That's been fundamental from the start. Their advocacy has been crucial in tackling systemic racism head on.
Like with police reform.
Exactly. They were very vocal supporters of the George Floyd Justice in Policing Act. Now, getting it fully implemented has had its challenges, for sure. But it was an important legislative push to deal with police brutality, try and rebuild some trust. And the league wasn't just cheering from the sideline.
They were actively involved.
Very much so. They organized town halls, got grassroots movements going, lobbied policymakers directly. It shows they're committed to pushing for change at the highest levels.
We also saw they're doing a lot on voting rights. That seems more critical than ever lately.
It really is. With all these restrictive voting laws popping up that tend to hit marginalized communities hardest,
Hmm.
the league's been pushing back. They run voter education campaigns, making sure people know their rights, know how to vote. They challenge discriminatory laws in court. They run civic engagement
Is
drives.
it working?
Well, their Reclaim Your Vote program specifically reported something like a 15% jump in voter turnout in the areas they targeted in 2024. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a tangible impact.
It seems clear they see how economic issues, social justice, it's all tied up with basic like healthcare and education access.
Totally interconnected.
Yeah.
You can't really fix one without addressing the others. That's why they have specific healthcare initiatives.
Like what?
Partnering with local groups to boost access to medical care in underserved areas. Their Healthy Communities Initiative is a good example.
What does that do?
It pushes preventive care, mental health support, healthy living,
Yeah.
trying to tackle those big disparities you see in chronic stuff like diabetes and hypertension among Black and Latino populations.
Right, those health disparities are stark. And education. You mentioned the funding gaps earlier. What are they doing there?
Yeah, closing that achievement gap is a major focus. They do it through things like after-school programs, providing scholarships, which are huge opportunities, and they keep advocating for fairer school funding.
Is there a specific program?
Project Ready is a big one. It's aimed at high schoolers, getting them prepped for college and careers,
Yeah.
mentorship, help with SATs, leadership training, really practical support. In 2024, they had over 5,000 students in it. And the results look good. 80% said it improved their grades and made them feel more ready for college.
Okay, so they're doing a lot across many different areas. They seem adaptable. But here's the big question, I guess. Given how huge these problems are, is it enough? Are they really moving the needle significantly?
That's the crux of it, isn't it? And there are different ways to look at it. Some critics will say, look, the scale of systemic poverty, of deep-rooted racism, it needs massive, maybe even revolutionary change, broader solutions than what one organization, even one as big as the League, can deliver.
They'd point to the millions still struggling.
Exactly. They'd say, despite all the League's hard work, millions are still facing huge barriers. It's a fair point. The scale is daunting.
But what's the other side of that argument?
The counter is to look at the tangible wins, the step-by-step progress. Those 10,000 jobs last year, that matters. The new businesses starting up, that matters. The policy reforms they help push through, those matter too.
So seeing those as building blocks.
Kind of. The idea is that these successes are foundational. They empower individuals, they strengthen communities from the inside out. It builds resilience, self-reliance, and maybe that's the path to longer-term sustainable change.
So it really depends on your yardstick then. Are you measuring by immediate widespread impact or by the potential for this kind of gradual, deeply rooted transformation over time?
Exact. And that leads to a really interesting question for you, the listener. Thinking about all this complexity, how do you think we should measure the National Urban League's effectiveness? What feels like the right way to assess their impact?
Well, wrapping up our deep dive here, I think it's safe to say the National Urban League is definitely making a real difference. You see it in the lives they touch.
For sure. Their approach is so multi-pronged, tackling economics, education, health, justice, all the big pieces.
Yeah, and that combination seems key, working directly in communities, the grassroots stuff, but also pushing for those bigger policy changes at the top.
It really is. You need both, right?
Yep.
Immediate help and long-term structural shifts.
And the fact that they've been doing this for, what, over 110 years now, that says something powerful about their relevance, their staying power.
Absolutely. It's not just about lasting. It's about adapting, changing with the times, meeting the needs as they evolve. They're clearly still a vital player.
Okay, so as you mull all this over, everything we've talked about regarding the National Urban League, here's one last thing to think about. Given all the different things they do, if you had to pick one single area for them to prioritize most heavily over the next, say, 10 years, what would it be? And maybe more importantly, why that one? What's your reasoning?